Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, if I look uncomfortable or odd, that's because I am. I'm both today. My body is doing something that I don't understand. It's excruciatingly painful, and I don't use that lightly, and excruciatingly uncomfortable. But there's a strange feeling that it's leading to something that's better because I think it's an undoing rather than a doing, but I could be wrong. So, yeah. Just an odd thing. Um, and I'm going to do a video later on. So I've kind of loosened up a little bit, but it's just very stiff and non-stiff. It's very hard to describe. But I thought I'd mention something about Bob Katter's thing, just because he just seems like an alright bloke, and he's getting hammered by the. They're not the press, because there's not a press in sight. They're terrorists with microphones and cameras and the internet and intelligence operations and provocateurs, working at the speed of Usain Bolt to encircle anyone who has an opinion, while being funded by large entities. Like, this isn't the press. A newspaper came out how often? Perhaps once a week, maybe once a day. A whole team going into like the height of their expression was down to copywriting and print location. It's an art form of its own. You should go and look it up. This is a war, and the press are at war with the Australian people. And basically, the argument I'm going to send through to Bob Katter is that the entire parliamentary system, back to its roots, is rooted in symbolic violence, symbolic displays of violence. There is a mace, which is a weapon of war. There is a rod. It always has been an expression of violence. It is controlled violence. That's what it is. So don't play this game any longer. We don't have record of the first 400 years of parliamentary process. We don't have a record of the first, 50 years of parliamentary process in Australia. So it's getting old. And it's basically, it's like if to play your game, it's bullying and mobbing, which is in fact the entire reasoning for the establishment of a House of Parliament. You're running around with cameras in people's faces, leading questions, narrative formation. I think it's time for these media companies to take a seat within Parliament, within the Senate, if they feel like they have a voice to be told or a voice to be heard about these things. And within the ceremonial, houses there. And then you can look at the mace and the symbolic violence. There's a gavel, there's a hammer, there's loud noises. Because it's always been about a de-escalation of mobs, of tribal violence. That's what it is. And it's just very unfortunate that our media is acting. Look, there aren't enough. All the technologies of the Western world focused on an 80-year-old man, running him to his last legs on the very thin understanding of what this whole thing's about. So, yeah. This is a symbolic display. Referencing history of a previous time is what I'm doing. The reason we have a Bob Katter is because of those days back in whatever country town he was from, where he's at, and he's taken the very responsible thing to understand a foreign concept of, parliamentary process, which is, again, I'll remind you, that it's a symbolic display of violence held in situ inside the Houses of Parliament. The problem is that it's boring, it's methodical. It doesn't sell clicks, whatever that is. The press is selling clicks. Well, you're going to lose. You're going to inevitably lose because we've got very firm foundations within this. This is all here. These are passionate issues. When we talk about, certain religious displays veiled in nationalism taking place in our country and the country of our forebears, or in my case, forebears. This for us is bringing up historic acts of horrific violence, the worst of the worst of the worst. It's the main focus of why I've stuck by myself here doing this, because basically there's no gang, there's no mob in this whole game. There's your words, and that's it. And all I saw was, a young, arrogant person licking his lips because he'd pulled a trigger on an elderly man. Pretty easy thing to do. How many 80-year-old men is it easy to get to fire up in this country, of any nationality? Pretty fucking easy. The problem is it's not anywhere near as easy to inspire young people to participate in a system when they see this type of barrier to entry projected by the media, which has had its kind of Cold War moment. It's time to demilitarize the media. And I might just mention the same thing about this malarkey going on in Victoria, that what message is this sending to the country, to those extremist-minded individuals? Because with a bit of thought, it doesn't take much to see that we've got a New Zealander masquerading as some type of Darth Vader figure in Victoria, who has bungled atrociously a warrant and is now holding the entire state of Victoria hostage in an ego-driven manhunt that, if there was 5% thought put in, which, it looks like this guy's, been pretty extreme in his actions. So one would assume there's maybe a little bit of thought gone into this, and you've taken astronomical resources away from the city, which is a war zone, as I described yesterday, to go on a wild goose chase of a man that's probably a million miles away. You're terrorizing an entire state and the entire country. And the Prime Minister standing in front of the swamp this morning, referencing his Italian heritage, and I love how the person who expected us to have, sympathy for the Aboriginal people, including tears at Ayers Rock, and hijacked what should have been a recovery moment for the Australian people after a pandemic to falsely bring light to the horrors experienced by the Aboriginal people. Well, what do you think this is? What do you think this is to the Maori people and the Aboriginal people to see a New Zealand Darth Vader chasing one man whose views may be false, but they are true for Aboriginal people and for Maoris? Is this a big reenactment to appease the ego of some ultra colonialist daydream? So we didn't have Channel 9 News back then. But I find it's just the height of hypocrisy. And I'll remind you as well that the Aboriginal people were not capable of speaking our language, let alone having a camera on their chest, and nor were they, in most cases, possessing firearms. So, obviously, Anthony Albanese is going out and checking the weather daily, and he's radically misinterpreted the true result of his referendum and has brought us back 200 years, symbolically anyway. As I said, Parliament is a symbolic representation of violence, so that we can all participate in his colonial delusion with his counterpart over here, Captain Cook, following suit. I thought the story is that we've come further than this. I mean, this bloke's hardly David Koresh, is he? That we're having our own little Waco moment here. I don't know if you can all see it. Too busy chasing 80-year-old men for clickbait.